Can you zoom with your feet? Well, some people say if you have a prime lens, you can move back and forth from your subject to zoom with your feet. But I'm here to bust that myth. Online, there's many discussions about prime lenses versus zoom lenses. In this case, the zoom lens allows you to go from 24 millimeters to 105 millimeters and everything in between, versus prime lenses that gives you a fixed focal length, in this case a 24 millimeter lens or an 85 millimeter lens, and you're locked into those focal lengths whenever you use these types of lenses. Well, what's the advantages of having a prime lens versus a zoom lens? Well, prime lenses generally have a larger maximum aperture, in this case an f1.4 aperture, compared to zoom lenses, which typically top out at f2.8. This one tops out at f4. So f4 is much smaller than f1.4, and that's the advantages and disadvantages, right? You cannot zoom with these, but you get a larger maximum aperture, allowing you to draw in more light to the camera sensor versus something that's more versatile with the zoom range, but cannot absorb as much light as these two lenses. Some people say you can zoom with your feet if you have a prime lens, but that's sort of a myth, because while you can change the distance between you and the subject by moving physically back and forth, something does change if you move your position. Next up, I'll demonstrate the effect it has on an image when you change focal lengths as well as distance from the subject. Starting with this lovely lemon. With the 24 millimeter lens, check this out. When I take a picture, pay attention to what's in the background. And I'm going to switch over to the 85 millimeter lens, framing the subject, the lemon, the same way as I did with the 24 millimeter, and then we'll do some comparisons. Notice that with the 85 millimeter lens, you get a lot less background versus a 24 millimeter lens, which you see a lot more of the background. That's an example of how the background or perspective can change because your field of view is also changing. Now, if we apply this to portrait photography, imagine taking a picture of someone with a 24 millimeter lens. Your face is going to be pretty close to the lens. The background is going to have a lot of distraction because a lot of the elements are fit in with that field of view, versus an 85 millimeter lens, which has a completely different background, is much more compressed. At this point, some of you may have yet another question. What if you had the 24 millimeter lens but stood in the same position as what you shoot with the 85 millimeter lens and then just crop in? While you do lose resolution, obviously, you're still shooting with the 24 millimeter lens and you still get those lens characteristics. But if your subject is away from the edges, you might be able to cut down on some of the distortions. In photography, a lot of times there are guidelines and not really hard rules, so you can decide for yourself for this one. And then finally, since it's fall here in the New England area, we got to take a picture of the autumn leaves. So we're going to take a picture through the kitchen window, using the kitchen window as a frame for the subject, the leaves. And we're going to maintain that composition throughout different focal lengths and see what kind of effect it has. We're going to use the 24 to 105 lens and then take a picture while we're a little bit closer versus when we're a little bit further away. When we do the shorter focal length and we're closer to the window, notice that the neighbors' houses are starting to creep into the image, versus if you move back a little bit and use a longer focal length, you can kind of leave out the other houses and just focus on the leaves and have that fill the window, which is pretty nice. And that's all I got for today. Hopefully those 3 different examples help illustrate the effects that the perspective has on an image based on the different focal lengths that you can choose from. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as always, and I'll see you in the next video.